Hello everybody, welcome to Collab Lab. We made a mini-series where we talked to 3 really big science YouTubers and asked them what they think makes a good science video, about how they got started, and about what kind of advice they would have for people getting started themselves. In this video, we talked to Simon Clark from SimonOxfPhys about storytelling, about talking about your mental health online, and about marble statues falling from the sky. Enjoy!
I'm Simon Clark, I just turned 26. My YouTube channel is SimonOxfPhys, which is a terrible name that I've stuck with all these years. And I kept the F from Oxford in, which is the worst decision I've ever made.
So how long have you been making video content?
I started my YouTube channel in January 2010. Because I got into Oxford in October 2009, and I had a term to get my head around it. But I was trying to capture what it was like to be a new student there. Because the thing, if you don't go to a school, like a grammar school or a private school that sends a lot of people to Oxbridge, the thing you want to know about and you can't find out about is what it's like to be there.
How would you define your content?
My content's a bit all over the place at the moment. I started doing information videos about Oxford and Cambridge and answering people's questions. It was very much an education channel, but about a very niche topic. And then I transitioned into doing that content in the form of vlogs.
What was the most obvious difference between those two kinds of videos?
Well, the first one, when it's an educational video, you have a script effectively that you're saying, these are the topics I want to talk about, and I'm going to talk them to camera. Whereas with the vlog, it was experiential. It was about my boots on the ground perspective. You can put across the information via, experiential is the word, it's via your personal experiences with it. So I did a week in the life recently where I was talking about my research, and instead of just saying, this is the problem I'm looking at, and this is the technique I'm using to try and solve it, and these are the problems I'm having, it was that interspersed with everything in my life. So put it in context. It was saying, I went to work and this is what I did today, this is the problem I'm looking at, and then the next day saying, well, this is the technique I'm trying to use to solve it, and then, interweaving them. And I feel you don't have to dumb it down in that sense. You have to necessarily for the sake of length, because otherwise you could do an hour-long video about all the woes that my code's been causing me. You have to kind of keep it shorter for that purpose. But you don't have to make it less complex, I don't think.
That's very interesting, you're talking about contextualising the work, because I think a lot of the time science suffers from a lack of context.
Yeah, people view it as marble statues that just drop from the sky. And in some cases that is true. Like Dirac's work was literally perfect equation. Whereas, for most of us, we're scrabbling around in the dirt and trying to piece together bits of the jigsaw. And I feel part of the interest, so maybe the public interest is the wrong phrase to use, but part of the public interest is in that scrabbling as well as the picture that you're putting together.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Where do you draw the line between watchable and informative?
Well, does there need to be a distinction made between the two? I feel people can find content watchable and it can be educational at the same time. Someone there's a fantastic video by Bill Wirtz on the history of Japan.
I've seen that.
And it's one of the most amazing things, one of the most amazing educational videos you'll ever see. And it's hilarious and you want to watch it. It's so watchable, but it's incredibly educational.
You're absolutely right. So it's more of a skill thing. It's how much education can you cram in while
and it's also the telling of it. I mean, education at the end of the day is the same as storytelling. Except instead of a story is just a series of information, one after the other, that you sequentially put in somebody's head, and it's meant to deliver an emotive response. Whereas if you're doing education, it's an intellectual response. It forms new patterns in your head. And in the same way that a story can stay with you, we all remember, if we've seen Star Wars, we think about the fact that Luke was brave and Darth Vader was evil when they fought. You can think about, when you're taught something, it's basically the same thing. So there's too much of a distinction, I think, made between storytelling and education. Really, you should view them as being very, very similar. And you can use storytelling techniques in educating and informing people on an online video. And that Bill Wirtz video is a great example of that. It's
true though that when you try and make something into a story, if you try too hard, you'll end up bending the facts to suit the story.
Yeah, the facts have to remain absolutely paramount. Things can be made as simple as possible, but no simpler.
So do you ever...
Which is a quote from Einstein that has been simplified.
Which video are you most proud of?
Well, the stuff which I'm most proud of isn't the science stuff, I think. I did a series of videos about a year ago, I think, on mental health. because I have a large audience of young people, a lot of people who are at Oxbridge or at very competitive universities or going for competitive universities, and mental health is this great unspoken about thing in our society, and particularly in students. I think it's really not talked about enough, and I think the fact that I was able to use my platform to make these videos and get thousands of views on them, to just get people talking about it and make people aware of services, I think is something that I'm most proud of using the channel for. In my 4th year in Oxford, I had some real problems with mental health, which was one of the reasons I was so keen to make that series of videos. And as a result of that, I'd never really had the conversation with my parents about it, about the fact that I had the struggles. I never talked to them about it. And they watched the video and then called me, and we finally had a chat and got this stuff out in the open. So it was almost like a therapy kind of exercise. But that moment when I put the phone down, I think I cycled home, and I was just thinking about how it must have made them feel to, and it made me sort of redefine in a way like the boundaries between where you put the personal stuff, keeping it personal and putting it on YouTube. That was like the nadir, I think, of how it's made me feel personally.
So what's your YouTube lineage?
Well, I mean, I have a connection to almost like a family tie, I guess, which is I went to school with Charlie McDonald. I think he was the main inspiration for me to just do it myself. And the other father figure is father figures are the Vlog brothers, Hank and John Green.
So that's your lineage, your peer group. Who do you hang out with a lot of YouTubers?
There's a science YouTuber, fantastic YouTuber called Sally LePage, who's an Oxford PhD student who I've met several times, and we get along great. They always tell you that collaboration is the key to like growing your channel, because I have 30,000, 40,000 subscribers, and if Sally has 30 or 40,000 subscribers, then it's natural if you do a video together, you'll port them across to each other, everybody wins. It's not a zero-sum game at the end of the day. So from a perspective of like your career on YouTube, it's a great thing to do, but it's also just fun. YouTubers do have something in common. There's some thread of insanity that goes between every one of us.
Right, really quick answers. So everybody who is thinking about starting a YouTube channel, thinking about communicating science like this, why should they do it?
People should make YouTube videos to communicate science because it's very rewarding. It's a great skill set to develop. It's a great community to be part of, as we sort of talked about. And it gives you the opportunity to make a real difference.
Well, one thing to definitely do, if you're going to go for it,
have good audio.
And one thing to definitely avoid.
Hesitating and just not going for it is a big mistake.
A big problem for scientists as well, because the last thing you want to do is say something factually incorrect. And then often it puts the brakes on you, you're like, well, I'm not sure I can say that. Or...
Yeah, I mean, just go for it. I wish I'd started making YouTube videos sooner. There was a lot of things that held me back, and there's nothing holding you back really. The only thing that's stopping you from doing it is you. So you've got the kit, you've got the know-how, do it.
And one video that we should all watch.
You told me this a day ago. I still don't know if I have an answer.
24 hours.
I feel like that History of Japan video is potentially one of the best videos I've ever seen on YouTube. And it's almost certainly the best educational video. So I think that's a really good one.
SimonOxfPhys, thanks so much.
No, my pleasure. Really great.
Shake hands? Yeah, shake hands. That is a man brimful of ideas. And in the time that it took for us to release this film, he went from 40,000 subscribers to 70,000. So that is some vindication. Anyway, if you like that video and you want to see more, then there's a link to Simon's channel here on screen, as well as to an interview that we did with the oh-so-wise Jon Perry from Stated Clearly. And if you just stumbled across this video and you have no idea what's going on, but you could stand to see more, then click subscribe and get involved. I've been Ali for Collab Lab. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.